You respond to an ill person. You find a 42-year-old male lying on the kitchen floor. He appears cyanotic and lifeless. His wife and children are crying and screaming for you to do something. You approach, he is apneic and pulseless. Ready?
Probably assistant.
You better rethink that.
You think so?
Whatever you just whispered under your breath.
I don't think I need to.
Matt whispered something under his breath. He needs to reevaluate. Make sure I'm not having a stroke.
What was that?
Paramedics do not hate my life. It's fucking hilarious.
He says I have no life.
Oh, I have no life.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
said I hate my life.
I mean, that too, but I'll tell you what. I'm sorry that you got angry at your class, but I'm glad they fell asleep because this is super helpful. Sean's like, I'll go to the people who want to
Well, I'll
stay
give you
here.
drinks next week and we'll put a Benz on it. As they walk in.
Yeah. Guys, I
I'll be like,
made you
we're
cookies.
supposed to Benadryl in it. That's
They got a
fine.
hell of a hard
We're going
exam
for it.
coming up next Monday. Today was the wrong week to pick to fall asleep.
Right.
Sometimes you have to fail to succeed.
Mhm. Hey, there's a reason we wait till security to kick us out. That sounds cool, and then you think about school security, and that's not as cool as a sentence. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh. Well.
You guys ready?
I think I'm overthinking
No.
it. Yep.
Yeah.
It's not like he's gonna check your paper.
Dude, you don't know that.
Alright, I think I'm good.
Everybody pass your paper in.
Bitches.
This will determine if you're allowed back next week.
This patient is dead. This patient is in coarse ventricular fibrillation. PSI, scene safeties, ABCs, CAPs. Immediately initiate CPR. Administer high flow oxygen with an oral adjunct or nasal adjunct, 100% oxygen, 15 liters per minute. Establish an IV, 18 gauge AC or higher. Administer epinephrine 1 milligram, 1 to 10,000. Consider immediate defibrillation at 200, 300, 360 joules, or equivalent engineer or manufacturer specifications. consider the administration of a ventricular antidysrhythmic amiodarone, 300 milligrams, IV push followed by a 20 milliliter flush. Oh, I forgot. Also, consider my causes right out of the chute, 5 H's, 5 T's. If I do not select amiodarone, I can give lidocaine. I'm going to choose to give 1.5 milligrams per kilogram. IV push, maximum dose is 3 milligrams per kilogram. There is no infusion because the patient is pulseless. I'm going to repeat epinephrine every 3 to 5 minutes at 1 milligram, 1 to 10,000. If my patient is refractory, I could consider the administration of magnesium sulfate, 1 to 2 grams, diluted in 10 milliliters of normal saline, administered IV push, followed by a 20 cc flush, continuing CPR throughout. That's it.
Did you say amino drug?
Yeah, 300 milligrams.
Where did you get amino?
Dude, I don't
He says it wrong
I
every
say it every
time.
time.
He says amino drone every time. Granted,
It's
I
okay.
Didn't you say
I'm-
amidurone earlier?
No, I did not.
Who called
Okay.
it polymorphic VTAC?
I did.
I
Sorry, guys. Don't get mad at me,
no,
okay?
Can
I
we-
said unstable polymorphic.
Do you want me
VTAC.
to tell you why it's not?
Yes,
No,
please.
I got VFib, but can we talk
Okay.
about course versus fine again?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Separate
course
pulse list.
course is much more defined as chaotic.
Mhm.
So when you see course,
That's
it's
the
just
bag of
larger
words, right?
amplitude. Yeah, it's just larger amplitude.
Okay.
Fine VFib is very, very, very fine.
Oh,
And then, so typically what your patients do is when they go into VFib, they're in course VFib, okay? Then they'll go fine and then asystole.
Okay.
so okay.
Let me go back up and let me show you guys.
My very first initial thought,
You made me hungry.
like, it kind of looks torsati, but the more you look at it, it's not spindly enough.
Let me tell
Yeah,
you,
what-
let me tell you where you got the
originally,
torsati. You got the torsati right here.
Yeah, at the
That's
very end.
that's really
That's where it threw you off, is right
Yeah.
here. But it's just super coarse VFib, that's all it is.
Okay.
does
Why did I give mag then?
because they're gonna be super alkaline
No,
or
I just said,
acidic.
I just said if it was refractory to my ventricular antidysrhythmic, I would consider mag. I just went really far down in the algorithm, see.
Could you do sodium bicarbonate as well because of the alkaline?
because if
Sodium
they've been
bicarbonate is a base,
It is a base, guys.
Oh,
so
never
you
mind.
wouldn't add it
Jackass.
if you thought.
You
Yeah.
can only give it if there's.
Oh, see, and I misconsidered placement of advanced airway supraglottic or ETT with quantitative waveform.
I wrote
I
that.
missed that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
I miss Smartest Sean.
You should say that. You should say.
You should, and let me tell you why. Do you guys wanna know why that's important? Would you like to know the why behind that?
Yes, please.
Isn't it the-
Science.
isn't it the
why it's
rate that you
important.
can give
I
it
just
at?
thought like if you say 94% maintaining them. at
No, it's different than
94%.
capnography. Why is it important to get a supraglottic airway or an advanced airway and put capnography on it? Why is that important?
So you can watch
You
their
probably weren't taught that yet.
CO2,
No, I don't think so.
because oxygen is
Nope.
not the
Carbon dioxide.
yeah.
Carbon dioxide is going in and out. And you can see if we're doing quality compressions.
Okay, perfect. That's one thing. That's one thing, okay? It's important to have quantitative waveform capnography put on your patient so I can see quality of compressions. That's number one. Because quality of compressions, if they're done correctly, my quantitative waveform capnography should be above 10 millimeters of water. So it should be above 10, okay?
And the other reasons
The other
confirm
reason-
sorry,
No.
so sorry.
I'm gonna punch you in the fucking throat.
Sorry.
The other reason is
Delete that.
the first thing you'll see before you ever palpate a manual pulse, when they get ROSC, the first thing you'll see is their capnography spike.
see that.
You'll see the capnography jump. It'll go into the like high 50s, high 40s. And that will tell you, oh shit, we got ROSC.
Why is
It's
that?
one of the first.
Because remember, when you're in anaerobic metabolism, your
Yeah.
body's laying there, you're in anaerobic metabolism, you're building up what?
Acid, hydrogen
Acid
ions.
and CO2. So you have all this retained CO2, it's not going anywhere. As soon as you get a pulse back, what starts happening?
Circulation and you blow it off.
Circulation, you blow it off, you start off gassing, so your CO2 is gonna be peaked. It's gonna be really high. That's why it's really important to have CO2. The last reason that it's important to have end-tidal CO2 on a code is because if you have a measurement of less than 10 millimeters of water, or 10 centimeters, not millimeters, 10 centimeters of water, so less than 10, For greater than 10 minutes, it's criteria to terminate efforts.
Can you explain that? What does that mean?
Is it water
Water?
It's measured as,
or millimeters
Centimeters.
of mercury?
is it millimeters of mercury? Might be
It's
millimeters of mercury. Yeah,
You
I'm
said less
thinking,
than
I'm thinking
10?
CPAP, sorry.
For
Less
10
than
minutes?
10 for greater than 10.
Less than
If your
10?
end tidal
Greater
CO2 is less than 10 for greater than 10, that's one criteria for termination of efforts. Let me explain why that is. Because if you've been down for greater than 10 minutes and your CO2 is still less than 10, you're in,
You're so
you're in
far off.
stage 3 of death. You're in the metabolic phase of death. And nobody comes back from the metabolic phase.
Is that 10 minutes of you being down, or you on a monitor being
No,
recorded?
10 minutes of capnography less than 10.
Copy.
So you have to have measured it. It's not downtime, it's 10 minutes less than 10. So if you've been less than 10 end tidal CO2 for greater than 10 minutes, that's one criteria to terminate efforts. Because that's not considered compatible with life. Okay. Cool? All right, well,
You
I'm
think
glad
you
I
know
could help.
things until you
Yeah,
just
thank you.
start doing these things and then
Right.
you realize.
You guys are doing pretty damn good. You guys are doing pretty damn good. For real. I don't think you're that far off. ACLS is what, 2 weeks?
About 2 weeks, yeah.
The test?
No.
Or
it's
starting.
Psychomotor skills.
Okay.
When does the ACLS test?
How do
It's
you
your
know?
final exam for block 1. Your ACLS, it's EKG. So, at least if that's how Jenny's still doing it, I don't know.
In 2 weeks?
In 2 weeks.
I got really
we test
nervous
for
when you
skills.
said that. That really shifted my perspective of that.
I have a brown spot.
Right, we need to study from the time you wake up.
Oh,
till the time
fuck.
you
You
go to
said-
bed.
That's our
Sorry,
block 1 final?
Yes.
Oh,
You said-
Jesus.
It's the block.
Less than 10 millimeters of mercury for greater
Oh,
than 10
no.
minutes on capnography is criteria to terminate resuscitation
There's
efforts.
one criteria.
Is one criteria to terminate resuscitation efforts because they are in metabolic acidosis. Is that what you said?
No, they're in the metabolic phase of arrest.
Metabolic phase of
There's
arrest.
3
Okay.
phases of cardiac arrest that you're gonna learn. Hopefully they'll teach you when you go through, okay? There's the electrical phase, the cardiovascular phase, and the metabolic phase, cardiac arrest. The electrical phase occurs from arrest, so from inception to minute 4.
Okay.
That's known as the electrical phase. During the electrical phase, your heart's quivering. It's either in VTAC or it's in VFib, but the heart is not moving fluid through it, okay? As the heart continues to not move fluid through it, what happens is, if you look at my hand, the heart starts to cavitate. It's because it's a
getting
hollow organ. Well, it's a hollow organ.
Okay.
And if blood's not circulating through it, the heart collapses on itself.
Okay.
Okay, it just cavitates. Now, what happens there is you go into what's known as circulatory collapse. So that's circulatory phase of arrest. What happens is, if we come in this phase and we put the pads on and we defibrillate this heart, what do you think's gonna happen?
I'm
Nothing.
gonna roast it.
It's a raisin. It's already a raisin. It's a shriveled up raisin. What happens when you defibrillate a raisin?
Nothing.
Right? So that's why you've been taught, and that's why research has shown, you do vigorous chest compressions for how long?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Open it up.
200 cycles, 2 minutes, and what happens is, as you guys are pushing on the chest, the heart is re-engorging with blood. As the heart becomes re-engorged with blood, it becomes more receptive to the energy when you defibrillate. So what we see is we see a higher success rate with defibrillation. So that's why if you arrive at somebody's house, which let's be honest, when we respond on people, we're typically getting there after minute 4.
Yeah, about
Okay.
5 minutes, yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter. You gotta think about, it's when they arrested. How long from when they arrested to when it was identified they were in
Right.
arrest to when they called 911, you follow me?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that have to occur in order for us to get there,
Mhm.
right? We're usually getting there around minute 8, minute 10, okay? The metabolic phase of cardiac arrest starts at like minute 12, minute 15.
Kinda close.
Yes. But that's why it's so important when you get on scene that you immediately start pushing on the chest. Now, the rules are different if it's a witness arrest.
Because at
Okay?
that point, we
If
know
it's a witnessed arrest, like if you coded right in front of me, I can defibrillate you right now. Why?
Because there's still fluid in there.
Yeah, because I'm in the electrical phase, okay? So I can defibrillate you. But if I'm not witnessed, I don't know when you went down, I need to do chest compressions to re-engorge the heart.
That's crazy.
So
For the-
three different phases of cardiac arrest. electrical, cardiovascular, and metabolic.
And the first phase electrical is minutes like 0 through 4, like,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And then circulatory, would you say that's like what, 4 to
Minute 4 to minute 10
minute 10? And then metabolic
is
is
usually minute like 12 to 15.
okay.
I would have to pull up the research and.
Okay,
He
no worries.
said really
We'll
like
learn it.
metabolic is really like low chance of.
Well, think what's happening in metabolic is you've been in vascular collapse now for a period of time, right?
Mhm.
So you've been in complete cardiovascular collapse for a period of time. You've been in anaerobic metabolism for a long period of time. What has your body been producing that entire time? It's been producing all the byproducts of death, all the free radicals. I just say free radicals. I don't say lactic acid. Lactic acid is part of that, right? So now you have all of these products of death, because let's be honest, all of your end organs and everything, they're dead. Or they're in the process of infarcting because they've been hypoxic and in vascular collapse for so long that now they're starting to off all of these free radicals. CO2, acid, right? All that stuff. Now here's the problem. You really want to be mind blown? When we looked at the research, and we looked specifically at cardiac arrest, and we looked at survivability, we would resuscitate people, we would get ROSC, and they would die 2, 3, 4, 5 days later of multi-organ failure. So here we would do all this work, we would do great resuscitation, just to have our patients friggin' die, 2, 3, 4, 5 days later. We were like, why is this happening? Why is this going on? What we found was, as you're dead and you're laying there in anaerobic metabolism, and all these free radicals are starting to manifest in the end organs, right? All the free radicals are building up, they're building up, they're building up. They're not going anywhere. They're just sitting there, right? We get ROSC, what happens to all the free radicals?
Starts to remove.
They start friggin' going through your body. They end up in the brain, the kidneys, the liver, the lungs, the gut, right? Well, those destroy those end organs. So these people would die of end organ failure 3, 4, 5 days down the road. So we said, what if we can slow base metabolic rate? If we can slow base metabolic rate, then they're not going to produce the free radicals, and we're going to be able to delay that process. Hence, induction of hypothermia. That's where the induction of hypothermia came around.
Where we are.
So we used to do it in the field. We used to actually
Okay.
induce it. You guys don't. I'm
Yeah.
telling you to do it. We used to do that in the field. And I'll tell you why we got away from it. But what we would do is once we got ROSC, we would immediately start cooling the patient. We would run in ice cold saline. We would start packing them with ice, and we would drop their core body temperature down when we took them to the hospital. The reason we did that was because that slowed their base metabolism. So we got ROSC, but we wanted to stop all those free radicals from going everywhere.
Mhm.
The problem, and why we stopped doing it in the pre-hospital setting, is it was an uncontrolled reduction in temperature. I couldn't control it. Like, you would respond differently. And I don't know if fire truck A had their fluids at 33 degrees or 40 degrees, you know what I mean? I don't know. So it was very uncontrolled. And what we found was we had an increase in mortality because we weren't doing it right. So what we did was we said, okay, when you get ROSC, you need to take to a primary cardiac center. Hence, that's why they got primary cardiac centers now. So the primary cardiac centers were designed that when we notified them we were coming in with a ROSC, one of the first things they did is they have ready and waiting hypothermia. So the patient is controlled in their reduction in temperature, and they're put into a hypothermic state for 48 hours, 48 to 72 hours. While they're in that hypothermic state, they're put on dialysis. And the dialysis does what?
Filtering all that out.
Filtration.
God damn.
So what we're seeing now is we're seeing patients that we're getting ROSC on, when we take them to primary cardiac centers and they have the ability to induce hypothermia, and then they dialyze them, the patients are coming out completely neurologically intact without deficit.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Now, are they
Whereas
permanently
before-
on dialysis for that, or just?
No, it's just a transient thing. And again, it's just to help clear all of that shit out of the body, right? Because the problem is, if we cooled them and then we rewarmed them, Once we rewarmed them, what's gonna happen?
Yeah, just coming back.
The free radicals they're still there. They haven't been excreted.
And the
Right.
free radicals, that's just. Can you explain what those free radicals are?
Just think of free radicals as all the bad shit that happens at cell death.
Cool. All right.
It's all the nasty shit. It's all the gook. It's all the bad stuff.
Can you explain the free radicals in oxygenating?
It's not free radicals and over oxygenating. What happens when you hyper oxygenate somebody
Doesn't it
is
cause the red blood cells to burst?
it can.
Because that's what I remember learning when I went to EMT school, and then somebody else was like, no, there's free radicals. Or
Yeah,
something.
that's not necessarily what happens. What happens is, I want you guys to think of homeostasis, right?
Okay.
Your body wants to be in what?
Balance.
Wants to be in balance. So if I come up to you and I start going hang, and I got 1,000% oxygen blowing in your pie hole, what happens is I'm hyper oxygenating you. I'm throwing off your oxygen. So what's happening is your oxygen dissociation curve, which I'm sure Dr. Pavlik taught you, where we have oxygen, we have CO2, we have all of our base stuff. What happens is it skyrockets your oxygen. So what does your body start to do? It starts to buffer. It tries to start to buffer all of that. So you start getting all these crazy Ivan responses. It throws off your complete oxygen dissociation curve, and you start developing all these toxins and free radicals and other things. Now, the whole red cell blowing up thing, I don't know about that. I mean, I would have to research that just a little bit, but that's really why, is it throws it off. Same thing with hyperventilation. When we hyperventilate somebody, I'm dropping your CO2.
Yeah.
I'm like dropping your CO2 and depleting your CO2 to nothing. And I'm also hyperventilating, which is causing increased thoracic pressure. I'm not getting the pause that's required for cardiac output, right? Because we talked about, or I think I talked about with you guys, when the pressure in the chest expands, that causes changes to cardiac output. That's how we see sinus arrhythmias, that's how we see things. So if you're constantly blowing up someone's chest, what are you doing?
Taking it
Is that a
You're
way?
impacting all those things. You're impacting vasculature, you're impacting all of it.
Is that a way you can cause barotrauma in the sense that you're hyperventilating someone, expanding their lungs as we're doing compressions? You're pushing down and they're blowing up.
You potentially could, especially if they have an underlying pathology. If they have an underlying pathology of something like, say, chronic bronchiolitis, asthma, COPD, something like that, then fuck yes, they're at risk. Or they're body habitus. If they're really thin, they're tall, they have pectus excavatum, then those are all predispositions for those types of things. So.
One day we'll be a quarter of as smart as Sean.
I know, honestly.
You guys need to understand that's 35 years of work. It's 35 years of work, man. You'll get there. It's just.
If I can pick your brain for something else, one thing that we kept running into, we had earlier, that was PEA. And even before that, I was looking at it and I was like, okay, I don't understand when I'm looking at PEA and you're looking at a strip and it's like, yeah, here's the P, the QRS, but there is no, there's no heart squeezing behind it, but you can see the electrical activity. How can you dissociate your heart is contracting on a 12 lead versus it's just electricity?
So clearly I failed you.
Okay, you didn't need to say that.
No, clearly I have failed you in some way. PEA is a condition, Matt.
Not a rhythm.
It's not a rhythm. PEA is a condition. You're looking at a strip, and you're looking at a strip. All the strip represents is electrical function. That's all that represents. A strip does not represent mechanical function.
But can't we tell?
No.
Oh no.
All I
Because
can
the
tell
P
on a
wave
strip is that you have
firing.
electrical activity that is depolarizing your heart. That's all I can tell. I can glean no mechanical data from an EKG. Nothing. All it tells me is your heart is firing. What I have to correlate that to is a pulse. Do you follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So, in a perfect world, yes, should your QRS match up with your pulse?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in a perfect world. But at the end of the day, there can be conditions that can cause you to have a perfectly fine electrical impulse and have no pulse.
Okay, I think where we all got confused on that PEA was the
Number two.
second scenario, is there was a rhythm,
It was sinus tech.
it was sinus tach at like about 130, and we said PEA, and if I'm not mistaken, that was like the right answer,
It was
right?
like
Yeah,
sinus
it was-
tach with PEA.
Well, that's because the
Interpretation of the
condition,
rhythm.
yeah, you still have to give the interpretation of the rhythm,
Okay,
okay? You're gonna say it, so let me tell you how you would appropriately say that.
So the heart's firing in sinus tach, but
You're
there's
gonna
nothing
say,
happening.
the rhythm is still sinus tach.
okay,
That's the rhythm. The rhythm is sinus tach. The condition is PEA, and that's exactly how you're gonna say it.
got it, okay, that
When,
makes
when
sense.
in the scenario, they say the patient is pulseless and apneic, and you're looking at the monitor, and it's a sinus rhythm, you're gonna say, that's a sinus rhythm, the condition is PEA, the patient is pulseless. I'm going to BSI, scene safety, ABC, CABs, initiate immediate CPR, compressing at a rate of 100 to 120 times a minute. I'm going to administer oxygen 100% via not, whatever you wanna do, blah, 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 blah. Consider my 5H's,
That
5
makes
T's.
sense.
Do you follow?
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so
The only
rhythm
time
is
you don't
sinus
have to
tach.
say the condition is PEA is when it's VFib, VTAC, polymorphic VTAC, asystole. You don't have to say, because it's a given that those rhythms,
Those are pulseless.
well,
Well-
VTAC isn't always pulses, but it's a given if you say that it's, you know what I mean? But if it's like sinus, junctional, idioventricular, 3rd-degree heart block, 2nd-degree, and there's no pulse, it's the rhythm, the condition is,
Okay, that makes sense,
Okay,
okay.
that
That
makes
makes
We
sense.
were all,
so
we were
much
all
sense.
overthinking it, we're like, but PEA is not a rhythm, and it was like,
Like,
Yeah,
we
her
knew, we knew
answer
that
was
it
like,
wasn't a rhythm, that it was a
condition.
thank you, yeah, we all knew that, but we just couldn't correlate it to like what we're seeing on.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
it's
it
just-
was
it's just
this
learning.
light bulb, this light bulb, but they weren't connecting.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
That
Again,
makes more sense.
it's all in how you articulate things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You're learning how to do that. You're learning the lingo.
Mm. Yeah, because I kept looking up what is a PEA strip, and
Fucking idiot.
I tried, and it wasn't making sense to me.
What did he tell you yesterday?
He's gonna have such a
Stop
complex. He's
asking
like, Sean hates
questions.
Sean
I-
hates me.
Yeah,
Literally.
I don't
how
hate
are
you,
gonna
man.
say
I know
that?
you don't hate me, but
How
I
are you
was.
gonna
If
say
I
that
hated
under
you, I
a
wouldn't
sign
talk
that
to
you don't know?
Yeah, that's my
I gotta
point.
go.
Sean only picks on me because he does that.
Yeah,
Seriously.
I gotta go.
Hey, he forced me to buy a
Thank you,
kill.
Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it.
Sean, you're fantastic, and we love you so much.
Tell your students we said thank you next week.
I won't see you guys, or you guys are done today, huh?
Yeah.
And then I
see
see
us
you
next
next
week.
week for 8 hours, so
Yeah.
Monday's
that
gonna
for us.
Monday's gonna be a long.
Listen, we're gonna need energy drinks though, Sean.
Yeah,
8 hours of lecture is too much for my brain.
well, it'll be dynamic, trust me.
Okay, so I don't have to sit down for 8 hours.
No.